Have you ever heard someone say, if she cheats, just leave? Yeah, that guy has never really been betrayed. The thing about pain is that it makes you creative. And for me, I decided to become an artist. I never thought I'd be the type of guy to end up in a cheating revenge story, but life has a funny way of turning you into exactly what you never expected. If you had asked anyone who knew me, they would have said I was the stable one, the dependable husband, the good guy, the one who always made sure there was gas in the car, who never forgot birthdays or anniversaries, who never raised his voice or caused a scene. Boring. That was the word I never wanted to admit was hanging over me like a storm cloud. I met Rachel when I was 27. She was fire wrapped in silk, the kind of woman who walked into a room and made every man forget what he was doing. She was beautiful, no doubt, but it was more than that. She had this energy that made you want to impress her, made you feel lucky just to be standing next to her. And if she focused her attention on you, even for a moment, you felt like the only person in the world. For a while, she made me believe I was that person. Our relationship looked perfect from the outside. At dinner parties, people would smile and say, "You two are just perfect together." Rachel would flash her dazzling smile and squeeze my hand just tight enough to make it seem real. And for a long time, I believed it was. Of course, we weren't perfect. No marriage is. Sure, she had expensive taste. Sure, she got a little too flirty with other guys at events. But that was just her personality, right? And yes, she seemed to care more about how we looked as a couple than how we actually were. But doesn't everyone? Denial is a powerful thing. At first, I ignored the small signs, the late-night texts, the way she suddenly became protective over her phone when she used to leave it lying around, the new lingerie that wasn't for me. I told myself she was just busy, that work was stressing her out, that I was being paranoid. You'd be amazed at the mental gymnastics you can do when you don't want to see the truth. But the truth doesn't care if you're ready for it. It hit me on a Thursday. I remember because she had told me earlier that week that she and her best friend, Natalie, were having a girls' night. She even made a big show of it, getting ready in front of me, asking if her dress was too much, kissing me on the cheek before leaving. I even chuckled to myself as I watched her go, thinking, man, I love that woman. But Rachel wasn't with Natalie. She was with him. The details? I got them all. I'm thorough like that. The receipts, the messages, the hotel bookings. She wasn't even careful. She assumed I was too trusting, too naive to look. And maybe I was. But once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. I remember sitting in my car outside the hotel, gripping the steering wheel so hard I thought it might snap. I could have confronted her. I could have stormed in, flipped tables, screamed at the top of my lungs. But that's what she would have expected. That's what a normal man would do. But me? I've always been patient. If Rachel wanted to sleep with someone else, I was about to show her just how that felt. But not in the way she thought. Because there was one thing she hadn't considered. One person who had been right there all along, listening to her stories, laughing at her jokes, sharing secrets over cocktails. Natalie, her best friend. And suddenly, I knew exactly what I had to do. You ever hear someone say, revenge is a dish best served cold? I used to think that was just a dramatic movie line. Turns out, it's some of the best life advice I've ever heard. And I was about to serve Rachel the coldest dish she'd ever tasted. After I found out about the affair, I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I didn't even drink myself into oblivion like some guys might. No, I just sat there in my car, gripping the steering wheel, letting the truth sink in like poison. Rachel was cheating on me. The woman I had spent nearly 7 years building a life with, the woman I had trusted completely, had been sneaking around behind my back like some second-rate soap opera villain. And the worst part? She wasn't even careful. This wasn't some tortured love affair where she wrestled with guilt. No, this was routine, a well-practiced deception. She had done it before, probably multiple times. I wasn't her husband anymore. I was just the guy who paid the bills and kept the house in order while she played out her fantasies. The realization hit me like a slow-burning fire, not an explosion, but a creeping, inevitable wave of heat. And when the flames settled, I wasn't broken. I wasn't shattered. I was focused. If she had cheated with some random guy, maybe I would have taken a high road. Maybe I would have walked away, cut my losses, and let karma do the dirty work. But Rachel made a mistake. A critical mistake. She involved Natalie. Now, let me be clear. Natalie wasn't the one she was cheating with. No, that honor belonged to some guy named Trevor, a personal trainer she had met at her overpriced gym. Classic cliche, right? The lonely wife and the fit, charming guy who tells her everything she wants to hear. I almost laughed when I saw the text. But here's where it gets interesting. Rachel used Natalie as her alibi. Natalie was Rachel's best friend. They had known each other since college, back when they were carefree, party-loving wild girls who thought the world revolved around them. They had been through everything together. Bad relationships, job changes, even occasional we should totally start a business together phase. And yet, despite all that history, Rachel had used her, lied to me through her, told me she was out with Natalie when, in reality, she was tangled up in hotel sheets with Trevor. That pissed me off more than the cheating itself. Natalie didn't deserve that. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I called her. I wasn't sure what to expect, but when she picked up, her voice was light, casual, like she hadn't just been unknowingly dragged into the middle of a betrayal. "Hey, what's up?" she chirped. I hesitated for half a second. Then calmly I said, "Hey, Nat, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." There was a beat of silence. "Okay," she said slowly. "Rachel told me you two were out together last Thursday night. I just want to confirm." Another pause, longer this time. Then she sighed. "Oh, God, what did she do?" I knew right then and there. Natalie had no idea, and that meant Rachel had made her second big mistake, lying to both of us. I told her everything. I expected Natalie to defend Rachel, to make excuses, to tell me I was overreacting, but she didn't. Instead, she let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Then she muttered. She swore to me she'd never pull this crap again. Again? Oh, that was interesting. I leaned back in my chair, gripping my phone. "She's done this before?" Natalie exhaled, and I could practically hear the internal debate happening in her head. Finally, she said, "Look, I can't tell you what to do, but if you want to get even, I might be able to help." That was the moment I knew. Revenge wasn't just an option. It was a necessity. And Natalie? She was about to be my partner in crime. Some men get mad when they find out they've been cheated on. Some break things. Some cry. Some forgive. Me? I started planning. The difference between revenge and stupidity is patience. And I had all the time in the world. Natalie wasn't just mad. She was furious. Not because I had called her. Not because she'd been dragged into the middle of this mess. But because Rachel had used her. Lied straight to her face with the same ease she used to order a soy latte at Starbucks. And when someone like Natalie gets mad, she doesn't just let it go. She does something about it. She wants justice. Rachel had underestimated both of us. The thing about betrayal is that it creates an opening, a void that wasn't there before. And in that void, something new can take shape, an opportunity, a shift in the way people see each other, a connection where there wasn't one before. I had always liked Natalie. She was gorgeous in an effortless way. Curly brown hair, sharp green eyes, a mischievous smile that made you think she knew something you didn't. But beyond that, she was real. No pretending, no acting, no faking an entire personality just to keep up an image. She wasn't perfect, but at least she was honest. And when you've been lied to enough times, you start to realize how much honesty actually matters. We spent hours talking that night. At first, it was about Rachel, how long she had been doing this, what she had told Natalie, how many times she had probably gotten away with it. Then the conversation shifted. It became about us. Not in a romantic way, at least not yet, but in the way two people suddenly realize they have more in common than they thought. Natalie admitted she had always thought Rachel was too self-absorbed, that she had a bad habit of making everything about herself. She told me she had even warned Rachel before, told her she was playing with fire. I told Natalie about the nights I had spent thinking something was off, how Rachel had started treating me like I was just There, not a husband, not a partner, just a piece of furniture she barely noticed anymore. By the end of the conversation, we weren't just angry, we were aligned. That's when I told her my idea. See, most men who get cheated on think revenge means storming into a room, screaming accusations, making a scene. They think it means flipping tables, throwing punches. But Rachel, she expected that. She wanted that. She was the kind of person who thrived on drama, who would turn herself into the victim the moment I lost control. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. No, my revenge needed to be slower, smarter, inevitable. And it started with Natalie. I proposed something crazy. Something that, at first, even Natalie hesitated about. Not because she didn't want to do it, but because it was dangerous. Because once we crossed that line, there was no coming back. I told her we wouldn't confront Rachel. We'd let things continue. Rachel would think she was still getting away with it, that she was still in control. Meanwhile, Natalie and I would start spending more time together. Subtly at first, then less so. A few innocent photos together. A few nights catching up. A few suggestive social media interactions. Just enough to make Rachel wonder. I wanted her to feel it. That creeping, suffocating doubt. That stomach-dropping moment when you see something that doesn't add up. That racing heartbeat when you realize the person you thought was yours might not be. I wanted her to go crazy. And then, when she was at her most paranoid, when she started questioning, snooping, second-guessing everything, I dropped the bomb. But not in the way she expected. Because this wasn't going to be as simple as you cheated. You know, if things were different, I think I would have fallen for you a long time ago. She said it like a confession, like something she had been holding back for longer than either of us realized. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I wasn't thinking about Rachel. I was just thinking about her. But I still had a plan to finish. See, revenge isn't just about getting even. It's about making them feel it. And Rachel, she was starting to feel it. At first, it was small things. The way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes when she asked about my day. The way she started glancing at my phone when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she suddenly had more interest in where I was going and who I was with. I could tell she wanted to ask about Natalie, but she wouldn't, because asking meant admitting she was worried. And Rachel, she never wanted to look insecure. So she played it cool, and I let her. I started pulling away. Not enough to make her suspicious, but just enough to make her wonder. I stopped initiating conversations. Stopped greeting her with a kiss when she walked through the door. Started laughing at my phone a little too long when she was sitting next to me. I let her paranoia do the rest. The real fun started when she tried to compensate. She started dressing up more when she went out. Started being more affectionate. Started making an effort. Like suddenly she remembered what it was like to try. Too bad it was too late, because by then I didn't care. And that's when I knew I'd already won. The night everything fell apart was perfect. Rachel had planned a dinner. One of those forced, look how happy we are nights that she probably thought would remind me why I loved her. She got all dressed up, made reservations at a fancy restaurant, and played the part of the perfect wife. I let her. We were halfway through dinner when I excused myself to the bathroom, not because I needed to go, but because I needed to set the stage. I sent Natalie a message. Me, you ready? Natalie, more than ready. I smirked, slid my phone back into my pocket, and walked back to the table like nothing had happened. Rachel was mid-sentence when her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, smiled sweetly at me, then picked it up, and then everything changed. Her smile froze. Her fingers tightened around the screen. I watched the color drain from her face as her eyes darted back and forth, reading the message she had just received. A message from Natalie. A photo. Of us. Nothing explicit. Just the two of us sitting across from each other at a cafe, laughing, leaning in just a little too close. But that wasn't the part that destroyed her. It was the caption. I figured you should know. Thought we were best friends. Rachel looked up at me, eyes wide, panic creeping into her expression. Something wrong? I asked, voice perfectly neutral. She swallowed. It's nothing. She forced a smile, but her hands were shaking. And that was everything. Because for the first time in our relationship, she was the one struggling to act normal. For the first time, she was the one wondering if she was being lied to. For the first time, she was getting a taste of her own poison. And I just took a slow sip of my drink, leaned back in my chair, and smiled. Game over. Rachel's laughter died in her throat. The sound of clinking glasses, soft music, and idle conversation faded into a suffocating silence as the messages scrolled across the massive screen. Rachel, you always know exactly what I need, baby. Trevor, anything for you, gorgeous. Same room as last time? Rachel, of course. My husband's clueless as ever. And then the photos. Rachel stepping into a hotel lobby. Trevor's hand on the small of her back, time-stamped receipts that lined up perfectly with her so-called girls' nights. Someone gasped. Someone else muttered, "Oh my God." Rachel was frozen, staring at the screen, her face draining of color. A quiet, strangled noise escaped her lips. What is this?" I took my time, savoring the moment. I leaned in, voice just loud enough for everyone to hear. "Your birthday gift." She turned to me, her eyes wild, pleading, but what could she say? That it wasn't what it looked like? That there was some innocent explanation for the months of deception now broadcast for everyone to see? No, she knew there was no way out. Trevor? He was already backing toward the exit, his face red, his hands raised like he could somehow distance himself from the disaster unraveling before him. But the murmurs were growing, whispers turning into a low roar as people connected the dots. Rachel's parents looked mortified. Her friends stared at her in stunned disbelief. And Natalie? She was standing near the back of the room, arms crossed, watching it all unfold with a quiet, satisfied smile. Rachel turned back to me, eyes glistening now, desperation creeping into her voice. You set me up?" I tilted my head, feigning confusion. "Set you up? No, sweetheart, I just finally gave you the attention you've been so desperate for." Her lips trembled. For once, she had no clever words, no manipulative excuses. She was exposed, utterly, completely exposed. And me? I had never felt lighter. With a final glance around the room, I let out a small sigh and picked up my drink. Happy birthday, Rachel. Then I walked away, leaving her standing in the wreckage of her own making. Epilogue. Rachel tried to call. I never answered. She tried to show up at the house. The locks had already been changed. She sent messages, long-winded paragraphs